If your vision fits comfortably inside your current life, it's not a vision, it's a preference. Today we talk about building a vision so big that limits lose their authority. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with this truth. Your life will never rise above the level of the vision you are willing to obey. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they negotiate with their limits. Today, I want to give you 12 principles that will help you build a vision so large that your current limits become irrelevant. Principle. First, vision is chosen. Vision is not something you wait to feel. It is something you decide to see. If you wait for confidence, clarity, or permission, you will wait forever. Great vision begins with a decision. Principle second, limits are learned. You were not born thinking small. You were trained. Every limitation you believe was handed to you by experience, environment, or expectation. And what was learned can be unlearned. Principle third, your results obey your identity. You don't get what you want. You get what you believe you are. When your identity expands, your vision expands automatically. Change who you see in the mirror, and the future changes with them. Principle fourth, clarity creates courage. Fear thrives in vagueness. Courage grows in clarity. When your vision is clear, hesitation has no authority. Unclear vision makes small problems feel massive. Principle fifth, principles beat motivation. Motivation is emotional. Principles are structural. When emotions fail you, and they will, principles will carry you forward. Live by principles, not moods. Principle six, vision requires responsibility. Big vision demands big ownership. You cannot blame your past and build your future at the same time. Responsibility is the admission price to expansion. Principle seventh, value determines scale. Your income, influence, and impact grow at the speed of the value you deliver. If you want a bigger vision, solve bigger problems. Money follows value. Influence follows contribution. Principle eighth, thinking must precede doing. Your hands cannot outperform your mind. Before you work harder, think higher. Better thinking produces better outcomes with less effort. Principle ninth, pain is a signal, not a stop sign. Discomfort does not mean danger. It often means growth. Every expansion phase feels uncomfortable because you've never been there before. Principle 10, environment shapes expectation. If your environment does not challenge your vision, it will shrink it. Get around people who think in decades, not weekends. Your vision must be protected from small minds. Principle 11th, action activates faith. Belief that is never acted upon is not belief, it's imagination. Action is the physical proof of what you say you believe. Move even when uncertain. Principle 12th, vision must outlive you. A vision bigger than limits is never just about you. True vision creates impact beyond your comfort, your lifetime, and your name. Legacy is vision with responsibility attached. Let me leave you with this. If your vision does not scare your current self, it will not require your future self. Think bigger, decide stronger, act bolder. Because when your vision expands, limits don't disappear, they surrender. Vision is a decision, not a feeling. Feelings are unstable, unpredictable, and temporary. They rise and fall based on circumstances, opinions, wins, losses, weather, and words spoken by people who may not even understand your journey. If vision were dependent on feeling inspired, confident, or ready, then no meaningful progress would ever be made. Vision begins at the moment you decide to see beyond what is visible, beyond what is comfortable, and beyond what is currently possible. It is an intentional commitment to a future that does not yet exist, made without emotional confirmation or external validation. Most people wait to feel ready before they move forward. They wait for confidence to arrive, for fear to disappear, for clarity to be perfect. But confidence is not the cause of action. It is the result of it. Clarity does not come before movement. It comes because of movement. Vision does not emerge from certainty. It is born from decision. The moment you decide, your mind begins to reorganize itself around that decision. Your focus sharpens, your awareness expands, and opportunities that were once invisible suddenly become obvious. Not because they are new, but because your vision has trained you to see them. When vision is treated as a feeling, it becomes optional. On good days, you pursue it. On bad days, you abandon it. But when vision is treated as a decision, it becomes non-negotiable. You act whether you feel like it or not. You move even when emotions disagree. You stay consistent even when results are delayed. Decision-driven vision creates discipline, and discipline is what carries you when motivation disappears. Feelings will ask you to quit early. Decision will tell you to stay until the work is finished. A decision-based vision also removes excuses. When you decide, blame loses its power. You stop negotiating with circumstances and start navigating through them. You understand that obstacles are not signs to stop, but signals to think differently. You no longer ask, can I? You ask, how will I? This shift alone separates people who dream from people who build. Dreamers wait for alignment. Builders decide and create alignment through action. Vision as a decision also reshapes identity. Every decision you make casts a vote for the person you are becoming. When you repeatedly decide in favor of your vision, even when it costs comfort, ease, or approval, you are training yourself to operate at a higher level. Over time, the vision stops feeling external and starts becoming internal. It is no longer something you chase, it is something you live from. Your standards are, your tolerance for distraction drops. Your capacity increases, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Most importantly, decision-driven vision creates momentum. Feelings fluctuate, but momentum compounds. Small, consistent decisions made daily in the direction of a clear vision produce exponential results over time. What looks like sudden success from the outside is usually the visible outcome of invisible decisions made long before anyone was watching. Vision did not grow because someone felt inspired every day. It grew because they decided not to quit on the days they didn't. In the end, vision is not about how strongly you feel in the moment. It is about how firmly you decide for the future. Feelings ask for evidence before they commit. Vision commits first and creates the evidence through action. When you stop waiting to feel ready and start deciding to move forward, limits lose their control, hesitation loses its voice, and the future begins to respond. Vision does not wait for permission from emotion. It begins the moment you decide. Limits are learned, not real. They are not fixed laws of life, nor are they permanent barriers built into your ability. They are conclusions formed through repetition, experience, interpretation. From an early age, people are taught, directly and indirectly, what they can and cannot do, what is realistic and what is too much, what is safe to pursue and what should be avoided. Over time, these messages harden in to beliefs, and those beliefs quietly become boundaries. Not because they are true, but because they are familiar. Most limits are installed long before they are ever questioned. A single failure becomes a permanent label. One rejection becomes a lifelong rule. Someone else's opinion becomes an internal voice. Over time, these experiences are misinterpreted as evidence of inability, when in reality, they are simply moments of learning. The mind, seeking certainty and safety, turns temporary outcomes into permanent conclusions. This is how limits are formed, not through fact, but through repetition and emotional reinforcement. What makes learned limits dangerous is that they feel real. They shape behavior, reduce effort, and narrow vision. When a person believes a limit exists, they stop testing it. They stop pushing against it. And anything that is not tested eventually feels immovable. The limit becomes self-reinforcing. Belief restricts action. Restricted action produces limited results, and those results are then used as proof that the limit was real all along. In truth, the limit never existed, only the belief did. If limits were real, no one would ever break them. Progress would be impossible. Every breakthrough in history exists because someone questioned an accepted boundary and refused to treat it as final. What once seemed impossible often becomes ordinary once it is challenged. This pattern reveals an important truth. Limits do not disappear because conditions change. They disappear because perception changes. When belief shifts, behavior shifts, and when behavior shifts, outcomes follow. Learned limits also thrive in environments that reward conformity over curiosity. When staying within boundaries is praised and challenging them is discouraged, people learn to shrink themselves to fit expectations. Over time, this shrinking feels responsible, even wise. But safety disguised as wisdom is still fear. Growth does not occur inside the comfort of what is already known. Expansion requires the willingness to be misunderstood, uncomfortable, and temporarily unqualified. The most powerful way to dismantle a learned limit is not through motivation, but through exposure. Action reveals truth faster than thought. When you act beyond what you believe is possible, even in small ways, the mind is forced to update its conclusions. Evidence replaces assumption. Capability replaces doubt. Each new experience stretches the boundary of what feels achievable, and what once felt unreachable becomes familiar. This is how limits are unlearned, not all at once, but through consistent contradiction. It is also important to recognize that many limits are inherited, not chosen. They are passed down through culture, family, and circumstance. But inheritance does not equal ownership. You can acknowledge where a belief came from without allowing it to define where you are going. The moment you question a limit, you weaken its authority. The moment you act against it, you begin to dismantle it. In the end, limits are not walls. They are lines drawn by belief, and lines drawn by belief can be redrawn by decision. When you stop treating your past experiences as predictors of your future and start using them as preparation, limits lose their power. What remains is not restriction, but possibility. Limits were learned, and anything learned can be unlearned. Principles outlast motivation because motivation is emotional and emotions are temporary. Motivation rises when conditions are favorable and disappears when resistance appears. It depends on excitement, encouragement, and visible progress. Principles, on the other hand, operate independently of emotion. They function whether you feel inspired or discouraged, confident or uncertain. A principle is a rule you have decided to live by, and once established, it removes the need to negotiate with your feelings. This is why people who rely on motivation start strong but finish inconsistently, while people who live by principles build outcomes that last. Motivation asks, how do I feel today? Principles ask, what must be done today? That difference determines everything. Feelings are reactive, principles are proactive. When motivation is high, progress feels easy. When motivation fades, progress slows or stops entirely. Principles eliminate that gap. They create structure where emotion creates fluctuation. They allow forward movement even when enthusiasm is absent. This is not about ring emotion, but about refusing to let emotion control direction. Every sustainable result in life is the product of principle-driven behavior. Health is not built by moments of inspiration, but by consistent habits. Mastery is not created by passion alone, but by disciplined practice. Leadership is not sustained by charisma, but by character. Principles create alignment between intention and action. They turn goals into systems and dreams into processes. When a principle is in place, action becomes automatic rather than optional. Principles also protect you from decision fatigue. Without principles, every challenge requires fresh emotional energy and constant internal debate. You must convince yourself repeatedly to do what you already know is necessary. This is exhausting and inefficient. Principles remove this burden by pre-deciding behavior. When a situation arises, the response is already determined. There is no argument, no delay, no dependence on mood. The principle acts as an internal compass, guiding action regardless of circumstance. Another reason principles outlast motivation is that they are rooted in identity rather than outcome. Motivation is often tied to results, progress, praise, or reward. When results are slow or invisible, motivation weakens. Principles are tied to who you choose to be. They are expressions of character. When you act according to principle, you are reinforcing identity, not chasing validation. This makes persistence possible even when external rewards are delayed. Principles also compound over time. Small actions done consistently under the guidance of principle produce exponential results. Motivation tends to push for intensity, doing a lot for a short period. Principles favor consistency, doing the right thing repeatedly over time. Intensity impresses in the short term, consistency transforms in the long term. The quiet power of principles is that they continue working long after motivation has moved on. When pressure increases, motivation collapses, but principles become more valuable. Adversity exposes what truly governs behavior. In difficult moments, people do not rise to their goals, they fall to their principles. This is why principles must be established before they are needed. They act as anchors when uncertainty, fear, or fatigue attempt to pull you off course. Ultimately, motivation is a visitor. Principles are residents. Motivation comes and goes, but principles stay and work daily. If your progress depends on how you feel, it will always be fragile. If it is governed by principle, it becomes inevitable. Long-term success is not built by waiting to feel ready or inspired. It is built by deciding how you will operate, then honoring that decision regardless of emotion. Principles do not shout, but they endure, and endurance is what produces lasting results. Identity determines capacity because behavior always flows from self-perception. You do not consistently act beyond who you believe you are. Skills, resources, and opportunities matter, but they are all filtered through identity. If your self-image is small, your actions will be cautious. If your self-image is limited, your effort will be inconsistent. Capacity is not only about what you can do, it is about what you give yourself permission to attempt. And permission is always granted by identity. Most people try to increase capacity by changing habits without changing self-concept. They set higher goals, adopt new routines, and seek better strategies, yet quietly hold on to the same internal definition of themselves. When identity and goals are misaligned, identity always wins. The mind will sabotage progress to protect familiarity. This is why people return to old patterns even after moments of success. The issue was never discipline alone. It was identity resisting expansion. Identity acts as an internal thermostat. When progress exceeds what feels normal, discomfort appears. Success can feel as threatening as failure if it contradicts how someone sees themselves. This discomfort often leads to self-sabotage, procrastination, or withdrawal, not because the person lacks ability, but because their identity has not yet caught up with their potential. Until identity expands, capacity remains capped, regardless of talent or opportunity. The powerful truth is that identity is not fixed. It is formed through repetition, language, environment, and decision. Every action you take is a vote for the person you are becoming. When you repeatedly choose courage over comfort, responsibility over excuse, and growth over ease, identity shifts. Over time, what once felt difficult becomes normal, and capacity increases naturally. You do not force growth, you embody it. Language plays a critical role in shaping identity. The words you consistently use to describe yourself create internal boundaries. Statements made casually and repeatedly become beliefs. Beliefs become expectations. Expectations become limits. When you change how you speak about yourself, not with empty affirmation, but with deliberate truth anchored in action, you begin to redefine what feels possible. Identity responds to evidence, not wishful thinking. Environment also reinforces identity. The standards you tolerate and the people you surround yourself with continuously reflect back who you are allowed to be. When an environment expects little, capacity shrinks to match it. When expectations rise, dormant ability is activated. This is why exposure to higher standards often feels uncomfortable at first. It challenges identity, but that discomfort is not a signal to retreat. It is an invitation to expand. True capacity growth happens when identity shifts from outcome-based to value-based. When you see yourself as someone who keeps commitments, learns quickly, and adapts under pressure, capacity increases regardless of external conditions. You stop asking whether you are capable and start acting as someone who figures things out. This mindset transforms challenges from threats into assignments. Ultimately, identity determines not only what you attempt, but what you sustain. Short bursts of performance can be fueled by pressure or excitement, but long-term growth requires alignment with who you believe you are. When identity expands, capacity follows automatically. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your identity. Change who you believe you are, and the ceiling over your life disappears. Value creation expands vision because vision grows in proportion to the problems you are willing and able to solve. When your focus is narrow and self-centered, your vision remains limited by your own needs, fears, and resources. But when your attention shifts outward toward contribution, service, and impact, your thinking expands. You stop measuring possibilities by what you have and start measuring them by what you can provide. This shift fundamentally changes how large your vision can become. Value is created when you reduce pain, increase efficiency, improve quality, or open new opportunities for others. The moment you commit to creating value, you are forced to think bigger. You must understand people, systems, and outcomes beyond yourself. This naturally stretches your perspective. Vision becomes less about personal success and more about meaningful impact. And impact always demands scale. You cannot serve many people while thinking small. As value creation increases, so does responsibility. Responsibility requires foresight, structure, and long-term thinking. You begin to ask better questions. How can this be improved? Who else does this affect? What systems are required to sustain this? These questions elevate vision from short-term desire to long-term architecture. You stop thinking in isolated actions and start thinking in processes, ecosystems, and legacy. Vision matures when it is anchored to responsibility. Value creation also removes fear from growth. When the goal is contribution rather than validation, ego loses control. You are less concerned with being judged and more concerned with being useful. This makes risk feel purposeful rather than reckless. Fear thrives when vision is about self-protection. It weakens when vision is about service. The desire to help others often becomes stronger than the fear of failure, allowing you to pursue larger, more ambitious outcomes. Another reason value creation expands vision is that it attracts opportunity. Value creates demand, and demand creates access. When you consistently deliver value, you are invited into rooms, conversations, and collaborations that were previously unavailable. Exposure to higher-level problems and thinkers stretches your imagination. You begin to see what is possible at greater scales, not because you suddenly became more confident, but because your environment expanded in response to your usefulness. Value also sharpens clarity. When your vision is rooted in solving real problems, it becomes practical rather than abstract. You are no longer chasing ideas for their own sake. You are building solutions. This clarity strengthens commitment because the work matters beyond personal gain. A vision tied to value has staying power. It survives obstacles because its purpose is bigger than comfort. Importantly, value creation compounds. The more value you create, the more capable you become of creating even greater value. Skills improve, insight deepens, and systems evolve. This upward spiral naturally enlarges vision. What once felt ambitious becomes insufficient. You are compelled to think bigger, not out of greed, but out of alignment with your growing capacity to contribute. In the end, vision does not expand through desire alone. It expands through usefulness. When you focus on creating value, vision is forced to rise to meet the scale of impact required. You stop asking, "What do I want?" and start asking, "What is needed?" That question has no small answers. As long as you commit to creating value, your vision will continue to expand because the needs of others are always greater than the limits of self. Action confirms belief because belief without movement is only opinion. What you truly believe is not revealed by what you say, but by what you consistently do. Words are easy, intentions are comfortable, but action requires commitment, risk, and energy. The moment action is absent, belief becomes theoretical rather than operational. Real belief always expresses itself through behavior. If there is no action, there is no belief, only preference. Many people claim to believe in their potential, their goals, or their future, yet hesitate when it is time to act. This hesitation exposes a gap between stated belief and actual conviction. The mind may agree intellectually, but the body refuses to follow because belief has not yet been anchored in trust. Action is the bridge between intention and reality. Until that bridge is crossed, belief remains incomplete. Action also strengthens belief. The relationship works in both directions. While belief can initiate action, action also reinforces belief through evidence. Every step taken provides feedback. Each attempt, regardless of outcome, teaches the mind that movement is possible. This creates momentum. Confidence is not built by waiting for certainty, it is built by surviving experience. The mind begins to trust what the body proves through action. Fear often disguises itself as preparation. People delay action in the name of planning, learning, or waiting for the right moment. While preparation has value, endless preparation is avoidance. Belief does not wait for perfect conditions. It moves forward with incomplete information. Action says, I trust myself enough to adapt. That trust is the essence of belief. Without action, fear remains unchallenged and grows stronger. With action, fear is exposed and loses authority. Action also reveals priority. Time, energy, and focus are limited resources, and how they are allocated reflects what matters most. When something truly matters, action follows naturally. Inaction is not neutral, it is a decision to maintain the status quo. Choosing not to act is still a choice, and it communicates belief in limitation, safety, or comfort. Action, by contrast, communicates belief in growth, possibility, and personal agency. Another critical truth is that belief matures through commitment. Casual belief evaporates under pressure. Committed belief survives resistance. Action forces commitment because it creates consequences. Once you act, retreat becomes costly. This cost strengthens resolve. The more invested you become through action, the deeper belief takes root. Over time, belief is no longer fragile because it is supported by experience rather than imagination. Action also clarifies direction. Many people wait to feel fully certain before moving, but certainty is a byproduct of the meant, not a prerequisite. Action provides information that thought alone cannot. It exposes what works, what doesn't, and what must change. Belief grows clearer as it is tested. Through action, vague ideas become defined paths. Ultimately, action is belief made visible. It is the only language belief speaks fluently. When you act, you declare trust in your ability to respond, learn, and persist. You stop asking whether you are capable and start proving that you are adaptable. Belief that never moves remains unproven and powerless. Belief that acts reshapes identity, expands capacity, and alters outcomes. Action does not just follow belief, it confirms it. In conclusion, building a vision bigger than limits is not about sudden inspiration or extraordinary talent. It is about deliberate choices made consistently over time. Vision begins with decision, not emotion. Limits lose their power when they are questioned and unlearned. Principles create stability when motivation fades. Identity sets the ceiling on what you attempt and what you sustain. Value creation forces your vision to expand beyond self, and action proves what you truly believe. When these ideas come together, something powerful happens. You stop waiting for permission, perfect conditions, or external validation. You begin to operate from intention rather than reaction. Your vision becomes clearer, stronger, and more resilient because it is no longer built on feeling. It is built on principle, identity, and action. A vision bigger than limits will always demand growth from you before it rewards you. It will challenge how you think, how you act, and who you believe you are. But that challenge is not a threat. It is the invitation. The future does not respond to wishes or potential. It responds to clarity, consistency, and commitment. If you leave with one understanding, let it be this: your limits are not final, your capacity is not fixed, and your future is not waiting on circumstance. It is waiting on decision. Decide to think higher, live by principle, create value, and act even when it feels uncomfortable. When you do, your vision will expand, and limits will no longer define what is possible.